Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. It's Friday, the 17th of February, 2023. And what I'm going to do today is I'm seeing some interesting trends happening in the gold stocks and for gold and other metals. And I wanted to sort of highlight some of the content that I put out during the week. Then tomorrow, Saturday, I have a couple of important reports that I'm going to put out on individual companies. And then on Sunday, I sort of go over my key shopping list and to prepare everybody for the week ahead. So let's get right into some trends that I'm seeing that I think are very important to pay attention to. The big trend that I'm always talking about is what's happening with the US dollar. And I think it's crucially important to the price of commodities, gold, silver, copper, other commodities, because the key price that everybody watches is what commodities are doing against the US dollar. And when the US dollar is moving up like it was for since about summertime of 2021, until September of 2022, it was on a big run, and the gold and gold stocks were under pressure. Since then, the U.S. dollar has rolled over, and it has been on a very steep decline until the last few days, last week, 10 days. The reason for that is on February the 3rd, the employment numbers came out, and they were much higher than anticipated. And I think that's caused the US dollar to get pretty overbought. And why that happened is that I always try to look beyond the headlines of these kind of reports. And what I think is actually happening is, and you can see this in the data if you look a little bit closer, is that the long-term or the permanent jobs are in decline, and these new jobs that have been created, I think, are second and third part-time jobs for people that are very extended. The credit card debt, the household debt is gone through the roof. The credit card payments are at about a 19% interest rate right now. And housing, which is used as a bank sometimes, the housing sales have fallen off a cliff. And so this short-term action to see the US dollar get overbought, I think is in fact short-term. I don't think that this is a trend reversal in the 50-day moving average. Went through a death cross in January, first week of January, had a very negative January effect. And I think that's all indicating that the US dollar is going to have a difficult time in 2023. Sure, you're going to see these short-term blips, but I don't think they'll be very long-lived. It's trading in the last couple of weeks as if the Federal Reserve is going to go back to their 0.75% moves. And they changed course in December to go down to a 0.5 point. And then in January, they went to a 0.25 point. So I think the process of stopping interest rate increases is about to happen. It's slowing down, and I think the next big move is for them to stop. And then beyond that, because of all of these negative economic indicators that I just mentioned, as well as you can look at the inverted yield curves, which have almost 100% accuracy at predicting economic slowdowns, are all pointing towards an economic slowdown in 2023. Some people at the Fed, I think, believe that they can orchestrate a soft landing. I think that's wishful thinking, and I think that they're overdoing it. in a significant way. Not only are consumers paying a lot of interest rates because for 14 years, the economy, the real estate market was all built on near zero interest rates. And in the last year, they've gone up to over around 5%. So that's a pretty significant change. And even on the national debt, it's expected to be about $1 trillion in 2023. That's why I don't think the interest rates where they are sustainable. And because I think that they're over tightening and breaking things, I believe that later in the year, they're going to be at least talking about the potential to lower interest rates and quite possibly actually lowering interest rates for a new round of quantitative easing. But nonetheless, we've seen the US dollar get overbought. And as is often the case, we've seen the gold price get oversold. So at the same time that the US dollar was rallying, gold has been dropping and is now trading below the 50-day moving average. I believe that this is very oversold here. Well, an interesting thing happened today, Friday, that I think is a precursor for what's going to happen next week. I'm always, when I see things that are overbought or oversold, I'm always looking for those little indicators that can things are about to change. And today, gold bottomed at around $1,828 an ounce. And by the end of the day, it was almost flat for the day, around flat to 1,851. I like to see those intraday reversals in a downtrend. I think that it's an indicator that that this short-term oversold condition is going to change, and likely on Monday or Tuesday. But this action here, I think, is really important because as gold was getting beaten down in 2022, around this point, I was putting out a lot of content and talking about the similarities that I was seeing to the year 2000. In the year 2000, we also saw the US dollar doing very well, gold under significant pressure, and the gold stocks, the silver stocks, the copper stocks, the whole metals complex of junior mining companies and even up to the big companies were trading at historic lows. And we got down to those lows again around here. And when things get that extreme, it's often a sign that it's overdone on the downside and that a rally is coming or a trend reversal. And we saw that in November. The US or the gold price broke above these 50-day moving average in early November, and then went on a very tremendous, exceptionally good run until early February. So during that, we saw a golden cross on the gold price, and we saw the gold price get quite significantly above the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average. And when that happened during this period, I saw a lot of companies, sponsors of my shows, picks in my reports that were doing extremely well. But in this short period of time, it's like there was 3 steps forward here and 2 steps back here. And so basically November, December, and January, 3 months worth of gains almost were all given back in a matter of about 2 weeks. And that's not more evidence to me that the gold price is oversold and the gold stocks are oversold. And where gold goes, often so goes the price of silver. I'll just bring it up. Here's the silver price. And as you can see, it's following that same downtrend. We can take a look at copper. Copper Actually is performing better than gold and silver. It came off, but it's bouncing off of the 50-day moving average. And I think what's really bullish for the price of copper, even if there is an economic slowdown in the United States, what happens in China is a lot more important. They are the biggest consumer, and then the countries around them are also big consumers of copper. And they had some COVID restrictions that they opened the country back up. And since then, the price of copper has been doing very well. And this is a lot of relative strength here. So most of the companies that I follow are either in gold, silver, copper, or other base metals that are closely associated with copper. And so I'm finding very much encouragement with what's happening in copper, showing relative strength. But I do also believe that gold and silver are very oversold. Okay, so now I want to go to my Substack. Substack is the website where I put all my content. You can find my interviews and my video reports at YouTube. On YouTube, you just look for Rocks and Stocks News. But then I also put them out on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Now, additionally, there I put my written content. So if you want all of my content sent to you as soon as it goes out, I recommend you subscribe to me on to Rocks and Stocks News at Substack. So that's rocksandstocks.substack.com. So let's go back here and look about a week ago. And I put out some reports, and I'll just kind of go over what I talked about. Here's one on, this was an in the news one. Amex Exploration had come out with some assay results from their project, their orogenic gold project in Quebec. I'm very bullish on this project. I think their their high grade zone is going to be a future mine. And then in close proximity to that, they found a bunch of other high grade gold. And these various zones are tightly packed in a small area that is bordered on the north and the south with two key faults. And these faults are very important because they're the cracks in the earth, or the path of least resistance that the gold-bearing fluids make their way up. And as you follow that north and south fault a little bit to the east, maybe about 300 or 400 meters, they come together, and they're drilling a series of crisscross holes across that zone. I think there's a very good chance that could be the conduit of how this fluid all got up there. Let's take a quick look at their stock price. And as you can see, it's been getting oversold of late, trading really close to its 52-week low. Actually, you got to go back to 2020 to see it trading at these lows. I think it's very oversold here, and I believe that they have a future mine on their hands that will be bought out in the not too distant future, maybe even this year or next year. I just think that they have a slam dunk as a future mine, and the kind of mine that a lot of major mining companies are going to want to own. Another company that I talked about in that same report is Galantas Gold. Galantas Gold also has an orogenic gold system, and this one is in Northern Ireland. For those that have been following my reports for a number of years, you know that I've only ever recommended one or featured one company in Northern Ireland, and that was Dalradian. Started following them at about 25 cents, mentioned them many times in my reports, and ultimately they were bought out at significant multiples of that price. And Galantis Gold, I think, has an excellent orogenic gold system. They had some news out on around that February 10th when I put that report out. And yet the stock just seems to keep getting beaten down and has now made a new 52-week low here. I think it's very oversold considering the quality of the project that they have. And I believe that this is a very good opportunity for investors to get an excellent high-grade gold project that recently they also added a VMS project in volcanogenic massive sulfide project in northern Scotland, and very underexplored project. And I'm liking what I'm seeing from that project. I also talked about a company called Copper Lake. Copper Lake is in Canada, and they have a very interesting project. They've hit some very high grade base metals, copper, in a massive sulfide deposit, but I don't think they're into the guts of it yet. And they've done a bunch of geophysics, and then they announced that they started drilling. And I think they're sort of on the edge of something that could turn out to be really special. And, you know, copper projects are not easy to come by. This is one that I like. Here you can see that they went through a golden cross in early January 11th. And then they had a pretty big run. They came back to their 52-week, their 50-day moving average, where they closed around that today. And I like this gap that's formed here between the 50-day and the 200-day. I like the trajectory of that 50-day moving average. You can also see that the 200-day moving average is starting to trend upwards. And with this drilling going on, I think that they could drop some important news. And company has a very modest valuation. So that's another one for you to take a look at. On that same February 10th report, I talked about my own company, Advanced Lithium, where I'm the CEO and a large shareholder. And we have been under a lot of pressure for our stock since, well, even way back here around April. And what happened there was the Mexican government announced that they were going to be doing a national lithium company. When investors heard that, they heard, I believe what they heard was nationalization of all the lithium projects. I've reiterated on many occasions that we are protected legally by the Constitution. It has a very clear in the Constitution that the government is not allowed to retroactively change the mining laws to affect projects that are in good standing. Another legal protection is if they were to expropriate us from the property, it would violate the U.S., Canada, Mexico Free Trade Agreement. The ambassador to trade of Canada has been in contact with me to discuss this particular issue. But I think ultimately there's going to be a resolution. Not too long ago, I met with the Lithium Max is the name of the national lithium company, to talk about the potential for collaboration. I would much rather see it go in that direction. So I'm hopeful that we can get a resolution on that. Another key asset that we have is a 57 square kilometer property just to the immediate north of the Las Chispas mine that Silvercrest put into commercial production in November. It's an exceptional mine in that they have a very low cost of production and a very high grade, so very high margins. And it's an epithermal vein system, a network of epithermal veins, and these networks don't really care about claim boundaries. The rock packages and the structures that cluster at Las Chispas is associated with also extends onto our Serape project, where we have two big underexplored veins that the past drilling, I don't believe, has found the boiling zone of those known epithermal veins. But I believe that there is a boiling zone of importance there because you've got widespread mineralization of gold and silver along a 5 kilometer epithermal vein and a 2 kilometer epithermal vein. That 2 kilometer one has only ever seen a couple of holes, and I don't believe any of that previous drilling on either the Serape vein, the 5 kilometer one, or the 2 kilometer Chiltepin vein have found the boiling zones of those veins. And another important thing is that I believe also that there's potential for a cluster of epithermal veins. Where you find one or two, you usually find many more. And that potential is there as well. So we have two cornerstone projects at this point in time. And I think there will be a positive resolution to our lithium stuff. And then I like our chances of finding gold and silver near Las Chispas in the Sonora Valley in Mexico. All righty. So then after that report, I did an interview with Paycor, and their CEO, Christina McCarthy, and I talked on February 11th, just after they announced that they had completed an $18 million bought deal financing to advance their remarkable CRD project in Nevada. And it truly is a very remarkable project in that the grades that they're finding, they have two styles of mineralization that seem to have followed the same structural path, where the rocks are the cracks in the earth allow the fluids, in this case, to bring up a CRD deposit and a high-grade gold deposit. At the CRD part of it, they found high grades of silver, lead, zinc, and then they have high grade to bonanza grade gold overprinting that to make for very valuable rock. If you look at the in situ values they're of the metals in the rock, it's just off the chart. And that's why they were able to get an $18 million bought deal financing done. And now they're cranking up and getting ready to start drilling on that CRD with the high grade to bonanza grade gold overprint. I'm very bullish on that company. Let's look at their stock chart. Here we go, Paycor. This company has only been trading since April of 2022, so they're kind of a brand new story. They finally actually are at the point where they can show a 200-day moving average, but here they had a pretty significant breakout in November that busted through the 50-day moving average and traded well above the 50-day moving average. Then they had some pressure, but I think that pressure ended here at about the $1.55 level, and they closed on at around $1.63 today. I think they've got an exceptional project that ultimately is going to be bought out and by a bigger company. And right now it's trading sort of in between that new 200-day moving average. You can just see the in blue there, starting now, and the 50-day. And now that they can crank up the drilling and start generating a lot of news, I think it's going to go back up here and start making some new all-time highs, which it reached. It touched here right around the all-time highs. I think they're in their immediate future are more all-time highs. Then I put out on February the 12th I put out a new picks, a group of new picks to my roster. I'm not going to deal with all of those because I'm actually going to talk about those on my Sunday show. But if you would like to see that show where I talked about Faraday copper, relevant gold, Golden Ridge Resources, emergent metals, Suma silver, and Massivo silver, that was on February the 12th. And there is another indicator of how I feel this short-term oversold condition has affected. I was able to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new companies because of this recent oversold condition. And I really like those projects. I'd invite you to check out that February 12th report and then stay tuned for Sunday because I'll be talking about all those companies then. Last Friday, I did a weekly wrap up, or sorry, February 12th. That was probably Saturday. And then on the 13th, I talked about Sabina Gold and Silver. They got a buyout offer, a take under, I think it is, because a lot of their shareholders are significantly under the price of the takeover by B2 Gold is significantly lower than a lot of the average buyers over the last few years. So I think it's a take under, and I also believe it's a very good project. So I think B2 Gold is going to be a big benefactor of getting that at a discounted price. I also talked about Dynasty Gold on that show because they're a new sponsor of my show. In fact, I'm putting out a report tomorrow on them, so I'm not going to talk about them right now. Nevada King is a company on my radar screen that I talked about on that show. That was on February 13th. You can check that out. I put out a note to paid subscribers on February 14th. There is an option that you can be a paid subscriber on my Substack, and I put out these special reports only to paid subscribers. They're written reports. When I see certain things, I'll actually show you one or two of those later. On February the 15th, I put out an In the News show, and I talked about my bullish arguments for gold. I talked about Faraday copper. That's a new pick that I added recently. I like their story a lot. I talked about the news from Fireweed Metals. I think they've got a heck of a good project, and they have some more assay results out, but they're in the Yukon, so they're going to have about a 6-month period where they can't do any drilling. And I think the pending news that they have out can sort of help keep the price elevated. But somewhere in the next few months, you're going to be able to get it in between this 50-day moving average and maybe even closer to the 200-day moving average. And I think that's if you can get it close to the 200-day moving average, I think you'll be well positioned to do that. They've kind of gone through a seminal moment on that project this year in that they had been drilling these horizons, or think of it like layers of cake, where they had found lots of high-grade zinc mineralization spread out over a very big area in different layers of this cake. But then they started following that cake, layers of the cake, if you will, towards a fault. And as they got closer to that fault, which is likely the conduit for the entire mineralizing system, they started to tag massive sulfides. And the grades, the thickness of the zones, they hit some of their best right here. They hit their best results ever, and look what it did for the stock. It also brought in a big investment by the Lundin family, a dynasty in the mining business. And I think that as they do more drilling in 2023, especially towards that fault, that I believe could be the conduit for the massive sulfides to make their way up and then inject those layers of the cake with the high-grade zinc over a very large area. When you see such widespread mineralization, it's suggestive that the system that brought that out there to the extent is big and powerful and high grade. And that's what they're finding as they move closer to that potential feeder fault where they're hitting thick intersections of massive sulfides. Another thing I think they're going to do is as they follow it closer to that fault and get deeper, I think there's a very good chance that they could start transitioning into a copper and gold zone. That's the way the zonation of these massive sulfides often occur. As you get furthest away from the heat engine, you'll get your zinc, lead, and silver mineralization. And as you get closer to the heat engine and deeper, you'll get into the copper and gold zones. And so I think they've got a very bright future, but take advantage of that seasonality when they can't be drilling due to the weather. And then you get a hell of an opportunity to buy and wait for them to start drilling again. Another company that I'm really bullish on is a company in Finland called Firefox Gold. And why I'm bullish on them is I think they're in the early days of finding an orogenic gold system in Finland. And Finland has been getting very hot over the last few years because there's been some important discoveries there, and it's a very mining-friendly jurisdiction. And I think that their recent results that I talked about on that February 15th show is a very important indicator that they are into a exciting orogenic gold system. And I think that they're at the very top of that system. And at the very top of that system, they're getting thick intersections of like 0.5 ounce per ton of gold. If that's any indication of what lies below, which it often is in these orogenic gold systems, because as you get deeper, you're getting towards the heat engine that brought all of that gold mineralization up through the cracks in the earth to the surface in this case. And I just think this company is too cheap. They bottomed here. They closed on Friday right about at their 50-day moving average, but look at how close they are to a golden cross. It looks to me like they're maybe 10 days or a week, 10 days away from a golden cross, and those usually happen when they have news out. So I'm very optimistic of what I'm seeing from a drill perspective and from these technical indicators that I just mentioned. On yesterday, I had an interview with Tim Froud, who's the CEO of Sokoman Minerals. They announced some excellent results from their drilling on their lithium project in Newfoundland that we talked about extensively. I invite you to go check out that interview. And in addition to that, we also talked about their results from about a week prior to that at their Moosehead Gold project, which is an orogenic gold system that they are also at a seminal moment because they have now started to tag the bonanza grades, like even over 100 grams per ton of gold in what they call their 463. And coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, that bonanza grade stuff was hit at their deepest drilling. And that's the case with these orogenic gold systems. You go deeper into the system, and that's where you get these jewelry box hits of bonanza grade gold, and they're at that point now. And I love these orogenic gold systems because, as you saw in the Swan Zone at Fosterville in Australia, when Kirkland Lake started to mine that, they were already a big company. But because it was so low cost and so high grade and big margins, they became one of the best performing gold stocks in the sector, gold mining stocks in the sector, and ultimately were bought out because of that that success that they had. And that's a very exciting point when a company exploring an orogenic gold system tags these bonanza grades, and now they're drilling, and they're actually using wedge holes to get into that 463 zone. So stay tuned for news from Moosehead. That's their gold project, the orogenic gold project. And then in about 2 months, they'll get back to drilling on the lithium project, where they're having some huge success. Go to that interview that I put out yesterday, February 16th, on my Substack, and you'll find that interview. Then also on February 16th, I put out an interview with the Patrick Cruikshank from 9 Mile Metals. They had announced a new acquisition of a project. Actually, in the last 10 days or so, they've added 2 new projects in the Bathurst mining camp, which is one of the most important VMS mining camps worldwide. And they added some key ground, but then earlier today, they announced that they've started drilling on their 9 Mile Brook lens area. This is a very thick lens of massive sulfides that comes right to surface, had up to over 10% copper in it, as well as zinc, lead, gold, and silver. And now they're drilling around it to find the source of the lens that they hit. They also have another massive sulfide occurrence 20 kilometers away at their California Lake project that they have that to start drilling around in the not too distant future to find the source of where those massive sulfide occurrences that they drilled into came from. So I think they've also got an excellent story. One of my favorite, actually, my favorite base metal explorer is 9 Mile, and I think they've going to have an exceptional year in 2023. They've had a pretty good year since over the last year. Got a nice trend on the 200-day. The 50 days keeps staying above the 200-day. They've made higher lows, higher highs, and with this drilling that's underway, I believe that they're going to continue. And I actually think this 200-day could make even more of a bullish run, and the 50-day as well, and then get into some new highs maybe in the next month or two. So that's the 9 Mile interview, 9 Mile Metals interview that went out on February 16th. And then earlier today, I did an In the News show, and I actually announced a new pick called Barksdale Resources. And why I like that company is they've got the project right beside the Taylor deposit at the Hermosa project. It was owned by Arizona Mining that made that discovery. Arizona Mining, which I covered in my reports at about 50 cents, went on to big success. They were taken over by South 32, and it looks like that Taylor deposit, only maybe half of it is on the South 32's project, and this Barksdale Resources has the other half, or third or half, on their property. And I think that one has a heck of an opportunity. I also talked about news from Ridgeline Minerals, which was one of the companies on my radar screen, and Suma Silver. I'm trying to get an interview with the Suma Silver guys. They're a recent new pick, and I'd really like to get them on the show. I wanted to show you something here before I close this show. This is notes to paid subscribers that I put out on February 17th. That was earlier today. And what I often do for my paid subscribers is I give them heads ups on stuff that I'm going to cover. Like, for example, Barksdale Resources. I told them that I would be adding them as a new pick. I saw some stuff in I-80 Gold that I wanted to talk about, so I did a blurb on that. So that's the kind of stuff that I put out for my paid subscribers. If you've ever considered it, here's some more examples. On February 15th, I was seeing the US dollar index as being overbought, gold oversold, thinking that those trends were going to reverse. Maybe we saw the start of that today, February 17th, with that intraday rally. I gave out a couple of links that I wanted my paid subscribers to look at. Talked about some interesting action on Amex Exploration, BlackRock Silver, Paycore Minerals, and Golden Ridge. They were bucking the trend on that day. In case of Golden Ridge, they were up 18.2% on double average daily volume. When I see these kind of things, I might not put out a whole report on it, but I do give heads ups to my paid subscribers. I'm going to go back to this one. There was one here that I wanted to highlight. No, that's not it. Back here, where is it? Oh yeah, here's one. No, that's some companies that I wanted to talk about. One of these reports back here, I added a bunch of new picks to my report. And before I put that out, I gave an update to my paid subscribers, telling them which companies I was going to be putting out this special report on of new picks. It would have been on around February 11th. Let me see if I can find it here. I can't find it right now. Sorry about that. But yeah, with the paid subscribers, they get heads up on trends that I'm seeing, action that I'm seeing, sort of my insights that I may not put out a full report on to, like with my sector reports. That's the added value that I give my paid subscribers. So if you've ever considered being a paid subscriber, I think it's as cheap as $25, and some people have been really kind, and they've even paid me up to $300 for a yearly subscription. Whatever works for you works for me. I really enjoy writing those special notes to paid subscribers. So there you go. That's my weekly wrap up. As always, you need to speak with your financial advisors to assess whether any of these investment opportunities are meet your risk profile. Do your homework on them. I think it's really important to understand the companies you invest in, why you invest in them. Think of them logically with reasonable timeframes to give them to deliver success. And yeah, there you go. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.